Welcome to the Fit Vegan Podcast, the show where we help you optimize your health, fitness, and mindset on a whole food, plant-based lifestyle. My name is Maxime Sigouin. I am a former triathlete, powerlifter, bodybuilder, and basketball player, and I've been vegan for over 9 years. I'm also the founder and CEO of Fit Vegan Coaching, which has helped over 500 vegans from 20 different countries to completely transform their bodies and their health. I'm excited for you to hear today's episode. Let's get into the show. All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Fit Vegan Podcast. Today, I am joined by one of our Fit Vegan superstars, Anne. Anne, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Superstar is very generous, but thank you for the introduction.
Well, I looked at your stats. You went from 200 to 157. So you're down 43 pounds so far.
Yeah, no, it's going in the right direction for sure.
That's pretty superstar. You're like LeBron James in the group. So
all right, I'll take it. I'm not good at taking compliments.
Good. Sorry. Good. It's good practice. I love it. Yeah. So I excited that we get to chat about your journey and how it went for people to have an idea, like, how you've been able to lose 43 pounds, what that was like for you. I always like to kickstart with a little background, right? On the members, simply because there's always an expectation that potentially people have less on their plate, and that's why they were able to transform. And realistically, you have a full life, and that is not all you did, over the course of the past few months. And so do you mind giving a little background as to who you are, what you do, and kind of what brought you to be with us?
Sure. Boy, that could take the whole hour. I'll try not to. So I'm not sure how far back to go. I'll start with my age. I'm 61, turned 62 this year. And I worked, I'd say about half my life. I worked, my training is in microbiology, master's in that. I worked for a small company when we lived on the West Coast, testing food and drinking water. And we moved to northeastern Pennsylvania, and I worked for a Fortune 500 company, testing everything, finished product, raw materials, wastewater, you name it. I worked in all the labs there, and did that for a number of years until I've got 2 children. And my youngest, I want to say I was in about 2nd or 3rd grade and was struggling a bit. So at that point, I talked to my husband. We're like, I think one of us shouldn't be working, either you or me. And we made the decision that I would cut back on working. So even though I stopped working then, I've been busy all the time. I just would start volunteering at the school and did stuff in the community and stuff. So I've always been busy. Anyway, now move ahead to about 10 years ago. I had a cancer diagnosis. It came about inadvertently. It took a while for them to actually diagnose it. And then when that happened, they found 2 for the price of 1. So I had both ovarian cancer and unrelated non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, which was a fluke that they found them both early. And I'm here to prove that, if early detection and listening to your symptoms and being persistent with doctors, because I went to a number and said some things are happening, and like, no, that's not this area, that's not that. And they finally figured out what was going on.
Yeah.
So that kind of changed my path. As far as I can speak for myself, you always wonder, did I do something that caused it? And I learned, someone introduced me to the China study, and I started learning about whole food plant-based, and just kind of shifted my whole approach to how I was eating, because I thought, well, I've had 50 good years, but they weren't that good because I ended up with 2 kinds of cancer. And I was the healthy one in the family typically. And so I started that whole food plant-based journey. I'd say about 90% consistent. There were times where I would be with friends and I would get something to eat at a restaurant, or they cook something special, and I ate whatever they made, that kind of thing. So I've kind of been doing that for the last 10 years. And then 2 years ago, well, not quite 2 years ago, my sister was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Her outcome was not as good. She passed away about 2 years ago. She had it for about a year and a half, 2 years. And I was her primary caregiver for a good chunk of the end. We were on the phone daily. She lives in Connecticut, or lived in Connecticut. I'm in Kentucky. And we were on the phone daily. It was really rough for her going through it during COVID because she was isolated so much. So we spent a lot of time on the phone, and I would visit her whenever I could. And then her last 3 months, I was with her 24/7. And I know what you've been through, and it's not easy having a loved one go through that. So after all that happened, both my in-laws and my parents decided it was time to move to assisted living. So we spent the next 6 months getting both of them situated, emptying out two homes that had over 50 years of stuff. So I was pretty exhausted by the end of that about a
It's
year
a
ago.
lot of stuff.
And and I've been always struggling with my weight. I've always been healthy. I've always been super active. I did have to get my knees replaced. I was an athlete when I was younger and probably picked the two worst sports in the worst positions. I was a setter for volleyball and a catcher for softball. So had done my knees in, and
Yeah.
so that was about 4 years ago. Um, Long story short, after parents were settled, my sister had passed, I said, all right, things have calmed down for a bit. I need to take care of myself. And so that's when I really stepped up. I was walking all the time. I was swimming all the time. I was doing yoga. I was riding my bike, and my weight wasn't changing at all. It was very frustrating. And I've follow a bunch of people on Instagram and on YouTube, and I listened to some things with Chef AJ, and that's where
Mhm.
I found out about you. I was never occurred to me to like find a coach or look something up. And so when you did, well, I don't know if it was your first interview or not, but an interview with her, and it was like you were talking to me. You just described me to a T. I'm like a perfectionist. I put everybody else first before myself. I don't ask for help, just all those kinds of things. And so I kind of went out on a limb. I didn't know who you were. I listened to a few Instagrams. You sounded genuine. And I thought, I talked to my husband. I'm like, this guy sounds like the real deal. And he's talking about me as far as I'm kind of healthy, I'm eating healthy, but I'm not losing the weight. And so he says, try it. So I tried it. So I kind of got us to here eventually.
Well, 43 pounds later.
Yeah, yeah, and going. I think it's two more probably when I weigh in this weekend. So
Yeah, that's
it's going in
awesome.
the right direction. Um, Now, what maybe some people might say, oh, you're retired, you've got all the time in the world. Well, I am retired, and my husband retired about 3 years ago. And ever since he retired, he doesn't know what to do with his free time, which I knew was going to happen. I have no problem
Yeah.
filling a day. So we travel all the time. We go camping a lot. We just took a cruise. Well, we've done two cruises now. And then we're forever driving back east whenever we go back east to visit family, because both our families are still there and a lot
Yeah.
of our old neighbors. It's a 12-hour drive, and we always turn it into a week to 10 days to just see everybody we can see. So I literally have been on this program more than half of the time I haven't been home. We've kind of been on the road. And so it hasn't been entirely easy. A lot of planning has to go into it. So that kind
Yeah.
of got us there.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah. So I would say to folks, I have obviously the obvious reasons are I want to be healthy. And for 10 years, I've been preaching to my family and my friends about you need to change the way you eat, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I didn't look like the person I'm describing because I was 200 pounds. And preaching just wasn't getting me anywhere. It was very frustrating. And so I
Mhm.
thought, well, I need to just live by example. And then now that they've seen me trimming down and having even more energy than I already did, they're starting to ask questions, and they're starting to make little tweaks to their lifestyle. So it's working finally that I'm impacting, my immediate family and the loved ones.
Yeah. Oh, so many things I want to say to that. So first
I
off,
know
I
I gave
I
you a lot.
appreciate you sharing about your sister, and it made me teary a little bit because it's gonna be 2 years that Jen passed away in like 3 or 4 days.
Oh, I didn't know it
Um,
was that soon. Okay.
yeah, so it's coming up, so it just made me a little bit teary eyed. But yeah, I'm happy that we connected on that front because not everyone can understand what it's like to be a caregiver, especially to be a caregiver full time. It's
Yep.
really challenging. Not necessarily physically, but emotionally, psychologically, it's a
Yeah.
lot.
It's all of those things. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah,
slept on the floor in the room that she was in. I was there all the
I get
time.
it.
So, you know, but you do it.
Yeah,
If there's no one else could do it. So I was fortunate that I did have the time to do it.
yeah. And you're grateful that you've had that time, that you did it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah, no, and I was happy to be there for her. I would have much rather been on vacation with her and not have the diagnosis, but it
Mhm.
is what it was. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that transition to plant-based came out of the diagnosis and wanting to become better, be healthier. Um, and I appreciate you sharing that. Like once you started basically, not say leading by example, because you were eating this way before, just your
Hmm.
body wasn't changing.
Right.
But people are visual, right? We can preach all we want, and it's a lot better to be the walking billboard for like, hey, this is what whole food plant-based can look like, and then people start to
Yeah.
ask questions.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um,
Yeah.
So, because you were eating whole food plant-based before you came into the program and the weight
Mhm.
wasn't necessarily moving the way that you wanted to. Even though you're being
Right.
active, you're eating healthy, there's a lot of people that can relate to that, right? The reason why I
Mhm.
shared that in the interview with Chef AJ is because I've had a ton of members come to me for the same things. Like, I'm eating healthy, I'm exercising. Why is my body
Right.
not changing?
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
what was different? And obviously I know why, but for you, what have you noticed that was different in your nutrition prior and then coming into the program that you think was the reason why you were able to drop the weight and see some progression?
There's definitely two key components that are different than what I was doing before. The first was eating a lot more protein. I've always would have some tofu, some tempeh, occasionally a smoothie, but not usually with protein powder. So definitely increasing the amount of protein because everywhere I read, you don't need enough, you don't need to add protein. You get enough protein from the vegetables that you're eating and the foods that you're eating.
Mhm.
So that was a big change. And then the other is doing some weight training. Uh, I've even with all the sports I played in high school and college, we never went to a weight room. It was always just running sprints, running up and down the hill, jumping up and down, maybe sitting against the wall. And that was the extent of it. It was just playing the sport. It was any formal training that I ever had. So I wasn't introduced to it ever. And
Mhm.
so that was a big change just to do things. And I did it at home because I wasn't comfortable going to a gym necessarily. I would do like a water class all the time and I swim often, but
Yeah.
never use the machines. And so those were really the only things that changed. Um,
So was this actually like your first time doing resistance training and strength training when you started with the program?
Formerly like that. I mean, I used to do a ton of push-ups in volleyball, which was
Yeah.
very humbling when my first week I had to do push-ups and couldn't do them anymore. But
Yeah.
you just kind of stopped after I played volleyball till I was done with my first trimester. So I played like my whole life. And then once the kids came and I just took care of them. So, if I had them in a backpack or had them on the back of the bike, I was riding them around or doing something, but no more push-ups or anything other than daily living things.
Yeah. So how was it for you to start strength training and what are the differences that you saw in your body?
Um, well, the first 2 days was like the first day of tryouts. I was really sore. It was
Yeah.
a rude awakening, but I
I
was like, all
remember
right, it's working.
tryouts. Those are tough.
Yeah, I remember it's like you try and find the least amount of stairs to get into the house because everything's sore. It
Yeah.
wasn't that bad, but there was definitely things got woken up that had not been being used in a long time. Um, but it got better. That didn't take that long, and my body would start to adjust. And of course, because I was new to it, I didn't recognize right away that like every 4 weeks I was getting new exercises. I had the same exercises to do for about a month, and then it would change up. And I was realizing after 2 or 3 months of doing this pattern that by the fourth week, everything was a whole lot easier. Like I couldn't believe how quick there was that adaptation by my body that I probably wasn't doing full push-ups by the end of 4 weeks, but I'm doing them now, no problem. So it's
Hmm.
been probably 7 months, maybe around that time.
Yeah.
So that part was um, not bad, and I was surprised. I would say how little amount of time it took me to do the workouts compared to the amount of time I used to be doing. Because I
Hmm.
would, and I still do, I'll go walk for an hour or two if it's nice in the morning, just because I'll put on my ear things and just listen to a podcast and walk. And it's just nice to be outside. But I was also going to like aquafit classes probably 2, 4, 6, sometimes 8 times a week. So that was like 8 hours of getting in the pool and moving around doing stuff. Swimming 3 times a week, doing some yoga on my own, and nothing was happening. And then I
Hmm.
kind of cut back on all of that, except for maybe a little less walking, and just was doing 30 minutes of exercise with a little bit of stretching before and after. And that was it. It was like, holy cow, things are starting to get loose. The
Yeah.
scale is starting to change. And I couldn't believe it. I still don't believe it really, except for that I can't wear most of my clothes anymore because they're too loose.
Yeah.
So
That's
I'm
a good problem. It's a
wearing
good
a brand
problem.
new shirt I just got on vacation that's a size medium that I haven't bought a medium since I was, in my 20s. So it's a good
That's
feeling.
awesome. That's a
Yeah,
good
it's
win.
crazy. I still look in the mirror and I see who I thought I was seeing, and I know it's not true because I'm fitting in clothes completely differently. So it's definitely changed.
Yeah, it is. I think it's psychologically challenging to accept that you can do less and get better results, right?
kind of counterintuitive, at least the way we're programmed. You got to work, 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 and work hard and exhaust yourself, and you really don't, which is nice. So I have no excuse not to get my workouts done. It's 4 times a week I signed up for, and I can do it any time of the day. Sometimes it's in the morning, sometimes it's in the afternoon. Um, I am trying a new challenge. I talked to my coach, and I'm going to start going to the gym for the first time next week and using
Oh,
some
awesome.
real equipment. So I can't say I'm terrified, but I'm intimidated because it's easy to do the bands and stuff in the basement, but I'm kind of at the 50-pound band for a lot of the exercises, and they're getting easy by the end of, I can still do them all and I'm not tired by the end. So it's like, I need to step it up.
Yeah.
So I kind of
Well,
reached that point.
genuinely, you're going to see even faster results by you going to the gym because a 50-pound band is only 50 pounds, so it's full stretch, right? And so
Right.
the point where it's looser, there's no tension there on the muscle anymore. And so now it'll be a constant tension on the muscle when you're doing it. I think you've built a good repertoire of how to perform the exercise that you'll
Mhm.
have you'll have you'll have good confidence going into. You'll look at a machine like, okay, this is for this. I know how to contract this muscle. It's the same with bands.
Yeah.
You'll do great.
Well, and the app is super helpful because I can look at the little videos because I don't
Mhm.
always know the exercise by name, but I just watch the video and I see like they're holding their hands this way and they're doing that. And it's like, oh, I can just copy what they're doing. So I'll figure it out once I figure out where the machines are or where the weights are and what I need to do. It'll
Yeah,
be a
and
little
I,
trial and error, but I'll get there.
and you can always film a video of yourself and send it our way. That way we can give you
Yeah.
some feedback on it.
Yeah.
Um, when you came in, I was looking at this. Your goal was to lose an overall 60 pounds. You're 43
Mhm.
pounds. You're 17 pounds in. You have more than enough time left on the program with us, and especially if
Mhm.
you're going to hit the gym, it's going to go even faster. Like it's a genuine difference when
Which
you go
I'm
from band
excited
to
for
weights.
because I never knew about reverse dieting until I learned about this program and how that all works. And like I can't wait to get there because I want to be able to eat more.
Yeah,
Not that I'm not eating enough. I mean, there's only a few days where I'm like, I'm just gonna have a snack because I'm really hungry. But but I do like today, I kind of wanted to go for a bike ride because it was 70, which is very unusual this time of year. But I
yeah.
already did a long walk and I did my workout. I'm like, I also am going to be too tired if I go for a bike ride. So I can't wait to be eating more and be able to do even more.
Yeah,
So
you're at the tail end of the cut now. So yeah,
yeah,
energy is and the food is a little bit more challenging than at the start.
yeah.
But you'll see for reverse dieting, and if you listen to some of the other episodes, like the past few that came out with members that are going through reverse dieting,
Mhm.
it's also psychologically challenging to go through it because, again, it's counterintuitive to be like, hey, and we're going to eat more food, but not put on weight over the
Right.
course of the next 3 to 4
I'm
months.
just trusting the process. You've done it enough, and I've heard enough people talk about it. It's like I'm trusting that you figured it out. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's worked
you can
so
have,
far, and I'm proving that because I also with my cancer diagnosis and surgery, they took all my parts out, so I had surgical menopause at age 50. So I'm a classic postmenopausal woman that can't lose weight, and I kind of can show not only can I lose weight, it wasn't that hard when you do the right stuff. So
yes, but having the right
encouraging,
strategy in place.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so what was there actually, I like that. What are the things that have come up throughout the program that potentially have been challenges that most people wouldn't deal with that you've had to overcome? So obviously travel was
Yeah.
one of them.
Yeah. I think that the travel, it just requires me to plan before we go. So if we've gone camping where we're camping for like 6 weeks. And so
That's a
I
long time to camp.
pre-measure, hmm? And
That's a
it's
long
tent
time to
camping.
camp.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. I mean, well, our daughter lives in Colorado now, and so we try and go at the end of August or so, and then stay for like 6 weeks. And the weather
Mm.
there is always nice. It rains. If it rains for an hour or two, and then it's dry again. So it makes it nice for camping. So we do a lot of hiking and stuff. But to do that, I don't have my giant refrigerator. Well, I don't have a giant refrigerator, but I don't have refrigeration, so it's cooler prep. And so anyway, before we even go on a trip like that, I try and measure out all the dry ingredients for all the recipes that I'm going to be using for the whole time. And then work from there. There's always a grocery store within a certain number of miles, so I can go shopping once or twice a week and just keep all the fresh stuff. So it's doable. It just requires a lot of planning. And then
Yeah.
same thing, like we just went on the cruise. And I brought protein powder with me to have with oatmeal every morning. And I brought protein bars to eat in the middle of the day. And I brought extra protein powder to make a plain smoothie. So I made sure I got all my protein because even though they might have vegan meals and vegan options, it's never like steamed or cooked tofu. It's always just, steamed veggies or some clean looking rice or some of that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
again, it's just kind of planning ahead.
Yeah. It's very, very rarely high in protein when you are to be on a cruise ship or go to a restaurant. Usually it's like really, really low.
Yeah.
Would you have seen yourself, 5 years ago bringing protein powder on a cruise ship?
No, I've never done that. I would eat healthy always. That was never a problem, but I would never bring protein powder with me. No. And even
Yeah.
like sometimes they would have like a tofu dish, but the amount of tofu was so minuscule. Yeah, just the servings that you might get, or something with tofu, but tofu is sort of like an accent. It's not really the main course, even though it might be in the main meal. So,
Yeah. So, a lot of people use the fact that they're traveling as a reason as to why they can't eat healthy and they can't prepare all of their food. And obviously you've managed to make it happen. So
mhm.
besides pre-weighing some of the dry ingredients, what are the other things that you've done to ensure that you were on track with your nutrition and your exercise? Because ultimately you're in the woods in a tent.
Yeah. Well, I brought my bands and I brought like some light weights. And a yoga mat so I could do the stuff. So sometimes it was like using a tree because I didn't have poles. Our tent isn't that strong to like
Yeah.
pull against or do that sort of thing. I know one time we went to a playground because I needed to do some vertical pull downs with the thing and I needed something, there weren't trees nearby where we were, but there was a playground. So, I just found what I could use in the environment to modify and do that. The other thing I learned after the first week of hiking and getting used to altitude is I really need to do my workout before we go hiking because I was exhausted by the end of the day. And it's like,
Yeah.
I still am going to do my workout. And I did it. But so now if I'm with like my husband or sometimes when my son comes along, I'm like, I'm going to do my workout first and then we're going to go do whatever we're doing for the day. So I really have shifted that is a priority. That's like identify with that now. And that's kind of what's keeping me on track is if I'm going to start cutting back on the workouts, then things aren't going to be changing anymore. I'm going to go back to where I was, where everything was static. So,
Yeah. Um, so how did you manage to do workouts when you didn't feel like doing them? Was there ever any of those moments?
uh, every day? No, it's not that fun. um, I just do it. I know there's no excuse. It doesn't take more than an hour. If I even took my time in between every exercise and did all the warm-ups and full stretching, which I always do anyway, but it never takes more than a whole hour. So a lot of
Mhm.
times I would just go in the basement, turn on the TV, or I would listen to a podcast that I missed from a group call and just be distracted by that. And before I know it, I'm stretching. I'm done with the workout and I've got through it. So I just do it. It's not,
Right. It
there's,
sounds so simple to say, but I try to
I
make it
know.
understand people. Just do it.
Now
Don't.
I would be lying if I say there aren't days where I haven't done it because sometimes there's just so much going on that I don't have time to do it. But what I
Mhm.
do, which is not learned, is I shift it to the next day. So I move
Yeah.
it, and so maybe like this week I just had we did our cruise and I caught COVID for the first time last week. So last week
First
I didn't
time
do anything.
since COVID started.
Yeah, I thought I
You
dodged a
lasted a
bullet.
long time.
I did, and then I didn't. So last week I really had to take it easy. I was still coughing a lot, and I definitely didn't want COVID to get worse.
Mhm.
Monday, I still was testing positive. I was feeling better, but I'm like, I really don't want to push, but I want to get back into exercising. So I just shifted it and I started my Monday exercises on Tuesday. I mean, I just gave myself another day. I mean, I've done that before in previous weeks. We might have a travel day where we're leaving on Friday. So I do two on Thursday, or I would just go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and take Friday, Saturday, Sunday off to accommodate the travel. So I just like the flexibility that the app allows me to shift it. So I'm not like deleting it. I'm just pushing it to when it works in my own schedule. And then I don't feel like, oh, I missed my workout today. I just like, no, I'm doing it tomorrow. Let me get everything done today that I need to do. So I work with
Yeah.
it that way.
And that's a great logic. And unfortunately, not everyone sees it that way. Some people, if it's a sign on a Wednesday, it's like it has to happen on a Wednesday, or else I can never, God
Oh,
forbid,
yeah.
do the workout a different day. But
Yeah.
when you think of it, if you have 7 days in a week and you're doing 4 workouts, you have 3 opportunities to move them if ever it doesn't work for
Yeah.
your schedule.
Yeah. And there have been those days, like it seems like everywhere we drive, where it's at least 12 hours. And so I know nothing's going to happen those days. So if I know that's happening, I've even taken some of that Friday workout or Monday workout or whatever day we're driving and start doing some of it in the previous days, so
Hmm.
I'm making sure it's all getting done. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I won't compromise on. I know I need to do it because that was the one of the two things that changed, that the protein. Like I've got to do, it's not asking me to do too much of some basic weight training.
Yeah. And ultimately it's paying off because your body's
Yeah.
transforming and your weight's
Yeah.
falling off.
No, and it's fun. Like now I've shed enough of my outer layer. When I like walk by the mirror in the bathroom, I'm like flexing my muscles because I can see them again. So that
Yeah.
feels good. I mean, it's kind of
I
cheesy,
love
but
that. It's such a common thing for everyone. I do it. Every member on the podcast has said it at one point.
oh, that's
You
funny.
walk in the
Yeah.
mirror, you catch your reflection, you're like, oh yes, I look good. This is great.
Yeah, because I used to not like to look at it, and now I don't mind so much anymore. Yeah, it's nice to see some of the old me. It's finally coming back. So
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. Well,
yeah.
I'm excited for you to, 17 pounds away. And I think you have like 2, 3 months left with us. Like that's going to come off with the strength training at the gym. That's going to speed it
Mhm.
up even more. And then reverse dieting, which is going to
Yeah.
be really magical for you to eat. It's going to be a lot of food, Ann. Just genuinely, it's going
I
to be a
will
lot of
have
food.
no problem eating a lot of food. Even the amount of volume that we eat, I have no problem. And you've heard me on group calls where I talk about the smoothies that I make, where I just basically
Yeah.
take everything from the refrigerator and shove it in there if I want to use stuff up. And I save everything. I save the stems from the kale and the tops from the radishes, and I just freeze it all and just cram it all in my smoothies. So yeah, I have no problem getting volume in.
Okay, good. Then you're gonna have a
Yeah.
good time with the reverse dieting.
Which is
Um,
great motivation to do this last bits. Yeah.
yeah. How was nutrition for you in terms of compliance and like food choices and quantity? Like how did you handle all of that? Because obviously when you go in deficit, you slowly have to decrease the amount of food
Mhm.
that you eat.
Yeah.
But whole food plant-based allows you to get more volume than traditionally you would get if you were non-whole food
Yeah.
plant-based. So how was that process for you of going through the deficit over time?
I don't think it was. First, I have to give a shout out to Coach Sarah. I think she's just a wizard with coming up with her recipes you because there is so much volume. I really am satiated almost every time, unless I've done a lot in a day and I've just burnt so many calories that I'm physically hungry. And
Hmm.
sometimes on those days, I'll just make a piece of toast or make some avocado toast, and just it's like I know it's going to be a couple hundred calories, but I need it, and it's
Yeah.
never impacted. It's like one piece of toast with avocado on it over the course of a week is not going to throw my diet off.
Yeah.
Um, so now the recipes are great because there is so much volume. So that in fact in the beginning I'd be like still eating and eating, and my husband and son are like, "Are you still eating?" They're like, "Why don't you just stop?" I'm like, "No, I have to eat it all," and I did. Like I made sure I would get it all in. So that wasn't a problem. And I think because I had already done the shift to whole food plant based and I wasn't doing much vegan junk food, I
Hmm.
didn't have the cravings that a lot of people might have those first couple of weeks because I had already
Yeah.
dropped eating a lot of sugar stuff, and I drink very rarely. It'll be a glass of wine once every month or something. So there were a lot of things I didn't have to give up to start doing it. I decaffeinated myself years ago because I used to drink too much caffeine and then I couldn't sleep and then I needed to wake up, and I'm like just cold turkey years ago when I was working. It's like this is ridiculous. I need sleep and I need less caffeine.
Yeah.
So I had already made a lot of those changes. So that wasn't too much of a challenge.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so ultimately, the only thing that was missing for you is literally just a change in structure that made it a bit
Yeah.
more efficient with your
And
exercise and with your
probably, I
nutrition.
mean, obviously the proportions, because I never counted calories. So I was eating a much bigger bowl of oatmeal most mornings, probably eating, sweet potatoes or potatoes would be plain, but again, more than I would eat now because I am restricting my calories, that
Mhm.
that sort of thing.
Were
Uh,
you doing kind of the whole food plant-based movement where it was eat as much as you want as long as it's whole food plant-based?
pretty much, pretty
Okay.
much. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, that does make a difference because from what you just said, and it's naturally like that for everyone, if we tell you eat as much as you want, as long as it's whole food plant based, I'm going for sweet potatoes, dates, bananas, the stuff that's mangoes. I'm going for like good tasting, high calorie foods. Like I'm not craving tofu, I'm not craving tempeh, or I'm craving the good stuff.
Right, right.
So naturally, the composition of your meals is very different, right? It'll
Yeah, for
taste great, but super high
right.
calories, very minimal protein.
Yeah, I would do a lot of vegan recipes that might use like a cashew sauce and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So, with the nut sauces, it's definitely gonna have a lot more calories. Everything
Yeah.
tasted great. That's how I could get the family to eat stuff, but it wasn't serving me the full purpose that I needed.
Yeah. And ultimately I want to add that also for the people listening, because a lot of
Hmm.
people do whole food plant based. That came from Chef AJ, and it's eat as much as you want as long as it's whole food plant based.
Hmm.
I want to say there's nothing wrong with that. It will make you healthy,
Right.
right? It will
Yeah,
make
and
you
I was
healthy, right?
healthy. I
Right.
just,
There's for sure it'll make you
yeah.
healthy. Um, is it the best thing when it comes to having a specific body composition look? No, because you saw the difference. You're eating whole food plant based, but now we swapped protein and just a bit more of an awareness on your
Yeah.
calories through the meal, through the recipes you were
Right.
making, and then weight started melting off.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's crazy how those couple changes made such a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes we're not too far off, right? Just like a few
Right.
degrees to the side, and then bam, the body is we're giving it what it needs basically to achieve that
Right.
shift in
Right.
body composition. Um, so I'm curious, when you started in the program, was there
Mhm.
any concerns, apprehension? Because like you said, you saw me on Chef AJ, you saw a few of my videos on
Mhm.
this stranger online that is saying beautiful things about nutrition and training. Was there anything that came up for you?
Um, I'm not sure how to answer that question. It just was like a leap of faith for me because the last coach I had was in college, for playing volleyball. So I've
Yeah.
never hired a coach. I wish I listened to one of your podcasts about having a coach to get your children to sleep. I wish I had that when they were little because they didn't neither of them slept till they started first grade. So definitely for the young parents, hire a coach the minute you aren't able to get your kids to sleep. Um, it just never occurred to me that that was an option.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I had an Instagram account, and if you look at the pictures I've posted, there's probably like a dozen from my garden. Like I'm not into the whole social media stuff. I'm not on Facebook. I don't do any of that stuff. So this is a huge leap to do kind of an online coaching program and even be in this space, to be posting things to the tribe and doing those sort of things is completely new for me for doing that kind of thing.
Yeah. And obviously the next question, was it worth it to kind of
For sure.
make that leap of faith? Okay.
For sure. For sure. No, I have zero regrets. Um, yeah, and I just kind of not entirely knowing what I even signed up for. I'm just amazed at the access that we have to you, to the coaches, whether it's just like a quick text on the app or through the group calls that are a couple times a week or, a personal call we do with your coach individually. So if ever there's a question, it gets answered, not,
Mhm.
not in person, but, we're seeing each other on the screen or I get it right away if I text, the coach, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, it brings me actually a good question is like out of the tools that you got access to when you came into the program, like what were the ones that you found the most useful that you got the most value out of?
Uh-huh. Well, for the exercises, I already mentioned it's having the little videos that show you each exercise and how to do it. Because
Yeah.
for me, coming from only knowing basic exercises, that was just tremendous. And then I think just all the different recipes that you have the flexibility to use. You get like two sets that are good for the month. And you can do it in any order you want, as long as you kind of keep it within the week, because I think Sarah plans it for the week. And then you can do the first one week, the next one the next week, or do two in a row, however. But it gives enough variety from week to week and month to month that I like that, excuse me, just getting a sampling of everything. And they're not hard to do recipes. It doesn't take long. I know the beginning, it took me a lot longer to food prep just because it was a whole new concept. I used to just make a meal that would last for a day or two and then just repeat, find something else to make. And then now I do for if I'm actually home for 2 weeks, I'll get 14 containers and pre-measure out all the powders and stuff I need for my smoothies. And I'll get 14 containers and measure out all my oatmeal and everything that goes in it. So it's a no-brainer for two of my meals, each day. And
Hmm.
then usually I'll meal prep like on Sunday and Wednesday. So I'm only cooking twice a week now. And it just makes everything so much easier. So I've
Yeah.
got a lot better at that than in the beginning. It seemed like it took me half the day to do 3 days worth of recipes just because it was like I was like the type A, let's measure everything and weigh it. And now I'm kind of eyeballs like that's a pot. cut in half,
Yeah.
scooch it to either
You got
side, plop it
comfortable.
in my containers. I did. And I'm like, I'm going to eat it all week anyway. It doesn't matter if I have a little bit more in today's and a little less in tomorrow's.
Exactly.
It all equals out. So it took me a while to get my head there that it doesn't have to be
Hmm.
exact. And now that I've kind of got there, I'm just a lot more relaxed with the whole cooking and the food prep.
Yeah, I think you have a better understanding of how nutrition functions, right? So it's a weekly thing. So if you have a bit more lentils on one dish, but overall you cook the whole thing for the week, it doesn't matter if there's, 50 grams extra in one container versus the other. You're going to end up eating
Right.
all of it anyways.
Right. And I mean you guys always are saying, just consistency compounds. And, if you have trouble with one meal, like we'll eat out for dinner once in a while and it's not the perfect vegan meal. I mean, it's vegan, but it's not the perfect healthy vegan meal. It's like it's not gonna blow 6 months worth of work. It just means, all right, I probably had a lot more salt in it and had a lot more fat in it. It's going to take your day or two and it's all going to balance out again. So I don't even bother weighing myself for a day or two because I would probably freak out because like, you can't physically gain 2 pounds from one meal. So
No.
but all that kind of help that you guys have given in preparing for going to restaurants and stuff has made it so that I can enjoy eating out. Might not be the most delicious, but I'm enjoying the company and all my friends are used to me. They've been dealing with me for years. So in fact, they
Yeah.
usually find stuff on the menu before me, before even looking for themselves. They're like, "Hey, there's this. You can have that." And I'm like, "That's awesome. I might not have found that," or "Thanks, I already found that." But
Yeah. Very
now I don't
helpful.
stress about it.
Yeah. And, the thing is, especially since you're a fat loss phase, like your calories do get less and less as you progress along. So your food options as you go to a restaurant tend to be less because you have less calories to play with.
Right,
But when you go through a reverse dieting, then it's the opposite to be aware of because then you're like, oh my God, I have to eat so much food. I can have this thing now. But this is like, because we don't do fake meat in the program for people listening, but
right.
like this is a Beyond Burger with fries. I can afford to have this in my calories.
Mhm.
And then, you tend to go for the more calorie dense option because you can. So it's about like
Yeah,
controlling yourself a bit as you have access to being able to eat more food.
yeah, yeah. Now that's the kind of thing where it's like I can't wait to eat like 2 pieces of avocado toast, whereas now it's not. It's just like a little sliver. And it's funny because the stuff I can't say it's binge on, but when I really, if I'm hungry and I want a snack, it's usually just plain rice cakes. It's not even like good junk food, but it's like I know it's not going to cost me anything, so I just have a healthy snack and move on and drink some seltzer water. Or often I'm like, oh, I forgot to have my smoothie today. It might be a day where I'm not working out. And I'm like, oh, well, no wonder I'm hungry. I haven't had my smoothie, or I didn't drink all my water, or it's 4 o'clock and I forgot to eat lunch today because I've been running around all day. So then I always make sure I eat my meals and everything. And if I'm still feel like I'm hungry after that, then I'll make myself a snack. And
Yeah,
then by then it's
cucumbers,
usually a good.
cucumber, salt and pepper is my go-to when I'm
Uh,
cutting and I'm hungry. It's
oh,
barely any calories in there.
good to know. I'm gonna
Yeah,
need it in a couple of weeks probably.
with nutritional yeast on top of it.
I do like nooch. Yeah, I use that on a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
salt, pepper, nooch, and like if you have a cucumber, it's probably like I can't remember. It's like probably 30 calories or something for the whole cucumber. It's very, very minimal, right? So
Mhm.
I don't really count it towards the calories because it's mainly water. But
Mhm.
if you cut it really thinly, like you can get a big platter of cucumber slices, and then you just munch on
Yeah,
those as like chips.
that makes sense. Yeah, no, that would be good. And I enjoy the cucumbers. I like the English ones, have a nice crisp to them. So yeah,
Yeah, you get very creative when you get low in calories with your
yeah,
nutrition. Like how you
yeah.
can add volume, how you can add flavor. Like your brain goes to a very interesting place.
Fortunately, I haven't reached that point yet. So far, it's been good. And I do like things like mushrooms, and I just put extra greens in everything if I'm sauteing stuff. So I usually bulk it up to begin with, so I'm pretty full by the time I'm done with my meals.
Yeah. Yeah. It's ultimately volume is the name of the game, especially when it comes to cutting. And as you
Yeah.
do the reverse diet, then it'll be focusing like then you can have a bit more avocado, a little bit more like nuts and seeds because it takes
Hmm.
up more of your calories for less volume.
Makes sense.
Because it
Yeah.
it becomes challenging. If you focus on volume as you reverse diet, like you're gonna be sitting down to eat for a while.
Yeah, that'll be too much volume. I do remember one of the earliest recipes when I was like at the starting calories, and it was like a whole cauliflower roasted, and that just was like so much at once.
Yeah.
But now I really don't think it's a problem. But I do remember, I think Coach texting Coach Nicole. I'm like, really? Couldn't that have been a lunch and not a dinner or something like that? It just was too much at the end of the day. It was a dinner, but that's all
Yeah.
worked out. I'm used to the food.
Yeah, your stomach gets used to it, and a big part is most people find that it's too much food when we start them off for their fat
Mhm.
loss phase, because if we start lower, well, great, like you'll be potentially a normal level of hunger, especially with the types of food we make you eat. But then 6 months down the line, when we have to create more deficit, like we don't have a lot of wiggle room and it becomes
Yeah.
unhealthy. So we try to start everyone as high as possible, that theoretically and where they're at and what their body can handle, so that we have wiggle room for a few months down the road
Mhm.
versus like an immediate reward of like seeing massive weight loss in the first month, but then in the 6 months, we have to make you like 1,000 calories, which we would never do.
Yeah, no, that would be crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
That would not be enough. I would I would be snacking all the time. Be a lot of
Yeah.
cucumbers.
Hey, understandably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's been a gradual taper. And I think from start to finish, it's been maybe 500 calories, over the course of 6 months. But it's been such a gradual taper that I really don't notice it, which is nice. And that's
Yeah.
where I go back to saying Sarah's a wizard because she just, knows how to add the volume and add the flavor. And it's all stuff I've cooked with before, but she's put things together I've never tried. And it's like, oh, I really like this. And it's so simple. So it's been fun finding a lot of these nice, easy meals that are very filling and not a lot of calories.
Yeah. And one thing you mentioned, I think is very important for also, like, you obviously know this now because you've lived through it, but also for the people
Mhm.
listening, you mentioned about a 500 calorie deficit since you started,
Right.
which equaled 43 pounds of weight loss.
Yeah. No,
So
it's crazy.
So
Yeah.
when you look at like any online calculator, you go to any YouTube channel, any other fitness people, they'll say if you want to lose a pound a week, remove 500 calories per day,
Mm.
right? We removed 500 calories over the course of 6 months. Then you
Yeah.
lost 43 pounds. That's more than
Yeah.
1 pound a week.
And it was only 100 at a time. I think I started at 1900, then I went to
Yeah.
1800. I mean, there was such a gradual change over a couple of months that it's really pretty negligible. Yeah.
Yeah. And your body, that's the thing. Whatever you give your body, it'll get used to it. And
That makes sense.
so if we remove a big chunk of it, it'll get used to it as fast as possible. So might as well maximize every single little decrease that we do to get the most out of them.
Yeah.
Um, because what's the point to, like, I hate starving, right? I hate, just like you, like, hate being hungry at the end. A
Right.
little bit of hunger here and there is okay, but to be hungry all the time is just not fun.
No, no, because then it's not sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah. So actually talk about sustainability.
Mhm.
Um, I always pride myself in doing things sustainably for members and for every transformation. So is the way that you're eating and the way that you're exercising seem sustainable for you, right? Moving once you're ready to go out of the program. And genuinely the answer could be no, right?
Yeah.
Fair
Mhm.
enough. I would like an
Yeah.
honest answer. Like, does this seem sustainable to you?
Well, I think it is. Yeah. I think the one thing I won't do is cold showers every day because I really
Fair
don't like
enough.
them. And I have to tell you, when you have a fever, a cold shower feels like ice cubes shooting at you. So they were very short during my fever phases of last week. Um, no, but really, the way that it has me eating is in like kind of a normal way to eat. So that part is very sustainable. I've always enjoyed having smoothies. So a smoothie a day is just an awesome way to get a lot of extra stuff in. Um, and the meals, I love meal prepping, so I don't have to cook every day. So I like that I can do something that it might last 2 or 3 days for dinner or for lunch. I'll double up a recipe and that'll be my son's lunches for the week. He's like, this is great. I don't have to do anything and he eats healthy.
Mhm.
That part's very sustainable. And the exercises uh, will be intimidating, but I already started a notebook where I'm writing down what I'm doing. So I'll have it kind of written because I won't have the app forever. And then I'll know what to do. So I'll know do these for a couple weeks, then change it up again, do something else for a couple weeks, change it up again. So I kind of know the rhythm, I think, of how it's been working. So I don't see why I would stop because I think if I stop, I'll go back to my healthy blob self, and I don't want to go back to there. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
sustainable.
beautiful. Well, we also email you all of your workouts once you're done.
Oh,
So
that'll be good.
yeah. So
Yeah.
you don't have to write them down. Like we
Yeah.
email you the whole PDF, so you have access to everything you've ever done with us.
Okay. I'm kind of old school. It's easy to have paper, and the paper is nice when we're traveling because I don't always have cell service to even use the app, which I've been able to find it almost everywhere till this 2 weeks ago and we did this last trip and I didn't have it for a couple of days and I lost all of my steps. I had like a perfect record for a couple of things and,
Yeah.
and it's all gone back to zero. But it's not the end of the world. That was just a number. That was a check mark, on an application.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It
uh,
keeps tabs of your strikes for how many, like, you've done your meditation for a certain amount of days, your workout, your
right.
cold exposure, and all that.
Yeah. So I haven't missed a cold exposure. I haven't missed a meditation, and I've been reading every day since starting this program, which were other than the cold exposure, I kind of was doing prior to already. So, but I
Hmm.
like that because of the check mark and the beauty of the app, it has sort of reinforced that I want to do it every day, not that I have to do it. That it's sort of become my identity that something's not complete if I didn't take some time for myself to do a little bit of something for myself. Because I will, things were going to get crazy again, and I'm going to be back east and taking care of somebody, and now I kind of
Yeah.
have a nice framework to have a healthy lifestyle and take care of people instead of just be like, well, everything is for you. I'll take care of you later. So
Do you
it
feel
definitely has
that
been, I know it's cliche to say it's a mindset shift, but this wasn't like a lose weight program. It was a like get your life in order and make yourself a priority. And this is how to do it program. I don't know. There must be less
that
words
that
to
makes me
say than
happy to hear. That makes
yeah,
me
but
happy
it's
to hear.
true. It just is. I just feel like I have got my confidence back. I'm a lot more assertive if I feel like someone's going to compromise what I've done.
Hmm.
They might be like, "Well, we're going to take you to a steakhouse tonight." I'm like, "Great! They always have potatoes and salad." It's like I would not. That would not be my first choice to go to a place like that.
Yeah.
Um, that sort of thing. So I just am a lot more comfortable in my own skin than I was before starting this program.
Well, that makes me happy to hear. You're saying a lot
Yeah.
of things that make me happy. Um, do you feel like it's made you, because ultimately I feel like if you're a caregiver once, like that's naturally your energy, because I don't think
Mhm.
people gravitate towards that
Mhm.
by themselves unless they have that in them. Um, do you feel like that's helped you become a bit more of a better caregiver, potentially like as a partner, as a mom? Like, have you noticed differences in those areas of life?
Um, I guess so. I can't say absolutely. Uh, in fact, I probably have become a better caregiver in making my husband and son do more stuff for themselves, which ultimately is
Good.
teaching them to become more independent, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I guess because now I can I won't say I can coach people, but I can at least direct them to if they ask me questions, I can tell them some different resources or a different approach maybe. But I'm not preaching anymore. Now I only say stuff if people ask me, how'd you do it? What are you doing? Then I'll tell them. I say, well,
Yeah.
these are the couple of things. I have one neighbor who's so funny. She every time I walk by, she's like, how many? What's your number? And she means how much weight have I lost because
Mhm.
she's observed. And she's like, what are you doing? What's changed? I'm like, I eat more protein and I exercise 4 times a week. She's like, no, what are you doing? And I'm like, no, that's all I'm doing. She doesn't believe me. So it's kind of funny.
It sounds too simple to be true, and we
It
want always like a complex answer to justify why we can't do it, right? It can't be
I
this
know.
simple.
I know. And I have another neighbor that when I'm not sick and stuff, she comes to one night class with me, or like a water class is I can have her as a guest every week if I want. And she's like, you just keep losing weight and I'm working so hard. And how come it's working for you and not for me? And I say, you got to change your diet a little bit, but you're doing everything else right because she does do some weight training. And she's
Yeah.
like, no, it can't be that. It is that simple.
It's too
So
hard, it's too emotionally loaded to change nutrition for a lot of people.
and that's where I can't say the easy, but I have that motivation. I've been through the cancer. I've had my knees replaced. I've had a lot of life changes. I've been the
Yeah.
caretaker. It's like I don't want that for anyone. I don't want my kids to ever have to do that for me. I want them to have a nice, healthy, long life. I would love to live into my 90s healthy, that kind of thing. And so I had a good 50 years before all that crap started, and I'm like, I would like it to be better. I look at all four, we still have all four of our parents, my husband's and mine, and all four of them are not well.
Mhm.
They're overweight, they have a bazillion medications they take morning and night, and it's like I don't want it for them, but they're not going to change. So I don't want that for myself, and I don't want my kids to have to deal with that, as we age, age healthy into old age.
Yeah,
So
well, I think that's a big part that most people don't think of, right? We always think of things
yeah,
as an individual standpoint, but if you don't take care of yourself, then the people that love you will be forced to take care of you because
yeah,
you didn't take care of yourself.
yeah. And it's kind of selfish. So I don't. I know. I think I heard Dr. Esselstyn say it. It's like most of what we all have is a foodborne illness, and it really is. A lot of the food that we're eating, whether it's the right or the wrong food or the wrong portions or proportions, um, so much of what I see in our families are preventable diseases that if they just changed a few things, they'd have a much better quality of life. But they just don't want to. And I can't, that's the hardest thing when you've got a loved one that doesn't want to change. So I just tell them I love them and,
Yeah.
do what I can and bite my tongue. And then they do. They're like, "How much kale did you eat today?" They make jokes, and my mom, with her poor memory, still will send me clippings from the New Yorker with cartoons making fun of kale and spinach and whatever. So
Yeah.
she remembers that I'm a vegan and eat healthy, but she refuses to change herself, that kind of thing. So,
Yeah. It is challenging to, well, I say that your story of going through cancer and wanting to make these changes and having knee surgery, right? Like psychologically, most people change because there's some form of pain that we're trying to not get back to, right?
right.
Or to trying to avoid. But if there's when there is pain, some people find comfort in that pain, right? You think of, I don't know if you ever had this, we'll just use knees as an example, right? You probably had
Mm-hmm.
some knee pain before you had your knee
Oh, I
surgery.
could barely walk. Yeah.
And there's a point where when it starts, it's the most painful thing ever. And then as time passes by, you kind of get used to how painful it is. It just becomes the norm.
Right.
And some people choose to accept that as the norm and to never really do anything about it because they know how to handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And to think of surgery, to think of changing the way that they eat seems like climbing Mount Everest. And
Mm-hmm.
so the comfort of knowing how to deal with the pain is it's the easiest path, the path of least resistance, and they choose to stay within that.
Yeah, you make a good point, because I had the knee pain for years. Started with scoping because I had a torn meniscus, and then it just gradually becomes what it became, bone on bone
Mm-hmm.
and all that. To where I had like the "you need new knees" waddle, where I just was walking. I had adjusted my gait. I had changed everything up to try and avoid having that pain.
Yeah,
I could cycle, I could swim, but walking was agony. So I missed out on family trips. My husband took the kids and they hiked out at Yosemite, and they've done, some other hikes. I was missing out on living basically because of the pain. Even though I was living with it, I wasn't living with it. Um, and I also didn't
tolerating
want
it.
to get it done at a young age because it is kind of young to be. I think I was 58, 57. That's young. Most people are getting them in their 70s or 80s. So, but it just was like, I can't wait 20 more years till I'm in my 70s to get my knees done. So I did it. Yeah, it was a setback. It took a little while to get back from it, but it didn't take that long. I think because I was eating healthy. So like even the
Yeah,
doctor's like, I was going to make you wait 3 months. I'm only going to make you wait 1 month, between the two. He's like, he couldn't believe I was recovering so fast. I'm like, well, I eat a vegan healthy diet. He's like, oh, well, you could have told me that. I might have done them both at the same time, one of those kind of things.
yeah,
But so my recovery went very well, but I also did all the exercise I was supposed to do, um, to heal
yeah.
from that. But as far as anyone considering joint replacement, I have to tell you, it's been life changing. I mean, I'm doing everything I want to do. I mean, my animal warm ups that you have us do aren't to textbook. They're kind of funny looking because I can't do like the deep squat. So it's kind of
Yeah.
comical. Yeah, if you ever want to do videos for people that can't do the full motion, you're welcome to use me. It's
Okay.
entertaining. But no, I've gone on backpacking trips now with the family. We did the whole Catalina Island Trail.
Mhm.
We go hiking in the Rockies now. I have no issues anymore with pain. I might be fatigued, but nothing like it was before. So it's just like it's kind of given me another lease on life. I'm walking every morning. It's just couldn't have done any of that prior to that. So
Yeah. Well, you have a very inspiring story, Anne. And I think, for I was trying to my how my brain functions is how do I help more people
mhm.
with whatever I learn with these podcasts or the people that are
Yeah.
listening. And I think ultimately it just from the cancer diagnosis to switching nutrition to the knee surgery to making a
Mhm.
commitment to do this to losing 43 pounds, I think not to simplify too much, but it all just came to you having a willingness to do it and then taking action
Yeah.
on it.
Um, for sure. Yeah. But I think you guys you've just built this phenomenal program that is so supportive, so that I love how it teaches you, like, you want people to fail a little bit, because then you understand why you're having slip ups, or why something is happening, or how you cope with, like, I went into, prior to having COVID, in January and December, I had an abscessed tooth, and then I think I caught RSV, which I'd never had before. So I had a horrible cold that lasted like 3 weeks, and
Yeah.
pain in my head that I've never had from a toothache before, till they ended up having to take it out. They tried root canal and all that, didn't work. So that was a 6-week torture of tooth pain and 4 rounds of antibiotics. But none of that freaked me out, because you guys prepared me for the old win the next meal. It's like, it's not going to be, I'm not going to keep losing weight at the rate I did, because I just couldn't exercise at the rate I was. But it wasn't the end
Yeah.
of the world. I maintained my nutrition. I did everything else that I could, and knew that I would get back to where I am now this week, where it's like, I'm doing all my workouts again. I'm getting my walking in. My nutrition is still solid. And it's like, all right, back on track. I had a huge, after like 6 months of not too many misses, I had maybe 7 weeks of missing it completely. And then now I'm back on track. But it didn't, you prepared me for that long before I needed it, thinking, it's not going to be me. I'm going to be one of your perfect people. And it didn't happen. There's no such perfect journey, which was good, because that taught me a lot, to not just feel sorry for myself because I'm sick. It's like, no, I've got a great menu of food to eat this week. Let's eat it.
Mm-hmm.
And, don't slack off. I think progress is going to still happen. And it did. So I don't know.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that, because there is no perfect client, and I say this in a nice way. I love every member.
No, I know what you
Um,
mean.
right? Like, life's gonna happen, and I honestly think it's a disservice to a member if their journey goes smoothly. If they don't encounter any obstacles, if they just lose weight every single week, nutrition compliance is 100% over nutrition compliance all the way through, and they never deal with any heartache. They never
Right.
deal with going off track with nutrition, having to move a workout, being sick, life emergency. Because I think it's better to learn how to handle these scenarios within the context of a program where you have support, versus if you have 6 months, 8 months of perfection, and then you go on to the real world and you get thrown little right jab to the face and you can't work out for a week, and it's like, oh my god, am I going to be
Right.
able to re-pick back up the habit? And you've shown that, like, yes, you can.
Yep.
Even things that are slower, there's certain things that you can control, like your nutrition, until you
Yep.
can work out again.
Right. Right. No, and I think the support that you guys offer is really amazing, because I've seen you work with some of the other clients that really are struggling, and you guys just bend over backwards to keep them on track, or to help them figure out what's going on. And you just don't give up. Like, if we're failing, it's because we're failing ourselves. It's not because you guys aren't trying to make sure we succeed. So I've definitely seen that.
Yeah.
And I want to shout out for Coach Nicole, because that's who I work with directly. She did the sweetest thing last week, because she knew I had COVID. I just texted her like, well, I finally caught it, blah, blah, blah. And she like made my workouts disappear. She's like, you're not supposed to work out when you're sick anyway. And it like took this, I wasn't going to work out anyway, but just to make it vanish from the app for a week, it was like, that was
So
like
you
a
don't see it.
vacation in-house. just simple little things are so helpful. And then, I said, all right, I'm feeling good. You can put it back in. Thanks. That was awesome. But just dumb little things like that really continue to help me be successful.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me happy to hear you've done absolutely amazing with your transformation. And this is just a start, right? I always say that there's two types of goal. There's a need goal, and there's a want goal. So the need goal is to get you to a place where you feel comfortable in your skin. You're at a weight where you can be mobile and you have energy and you're feeling awesome. And then once you're done with that one, then it's the want goal, right? So for you, once you've lost the 60 pounds, you've reversed dieted,
Yep.
need is taken care of, then want is like, what trip do I want to do with my partner? What mountain are we going to hike next? Like, what's the
Right.
next thing we're to do now that you don't have to carry an extra 60 pounds? And if you haven't done this yet, we had a member talk about this in the last podcast. If you grab 43 pounds, put it in a backpack and go hiking, that's what you were carrying with you
Oh,
before.
yeah. I've already felt that with my two 12-pound weights, that it's like, oh man, I've done that almost twice now. That is so much extra weight. I mean, I always knew the mathematics for like every pound is, I forget now, it's like
500
7 extra
calories.
pounds on every joint. I mean, it's
Yeah.
some crazy, it grows exponentially. So yeah, no, for sure. I can my body is thanking me. And I see it. Like I say I was healthy, but I probably was borderline hypertensive. My
Hmm.
blood pressure would always be like 130 instead of 120. Now it's 120 no matter what I'm doing. It's, that kind of stuff. My resting heart rate has dropped, from what it used to be to what it is now. I never had a Fitbit. I got that for them to kind of keep track of my steps.
Yeah.
Just, just there's, and my cholesterol is bananas. I forget. It's maybe it always was around 200. Now it's probably like 140. It's just
Wow.
everything has really cleaned up and, cleaned out. It's just working what it's supposed to be.
Yeah,
So,
that's amazing. Again, this is just a start because once you lose the last 17 pounds, you reverse diet, then you're in a place where you don't have that little voice in the back of your head. It's like,
mhm,
and you should eat this, and you should start exercising or lose weight. You should
right.
try something different.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful place to be when that little voice in the back of your head is just isn't there anymore. And you can just be you, know that you have a body that can accomplish the things that you want, and then
Mhm.
just focus that energy elsewhere.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about that. And it really it's freed up a lot of my time already. So I'm reading a lot more books than I was. It's giving me a lot more time, which I already had some time. So when we're home, I get a lot of stuff done. And when we're away, we get a lot of stuff done too. But yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's been good.
I'm curious as your thoughts on that because originally when you came in, right, we talk
Mhm.
about fat loss, we talk about nutrition. How was
Yeah.
it for you to see the cold exposure, the reading the books, the meditation, the things that are on your daily to-do list?
Cold exposure, I always knew about it. I had listened to Huberman Lab. I know all the benefits of cold exposure. It's
Yeah.
just miserable though. It's not, I've never done the bath. I have jumped
Yeah.
in cold lakes and rivers. I did bucket showers when we were camping, so it'd be a cold bucket of water. And there would be some days I'm like, I'm just gonna let the bucket sit in the sun for an hour or two, and then we'll do the cold bucket. Um, I did my best to stay track, but it just doesn't feel good. But it does feel good afterwards. But when I'm in it,
Yeah.
it never feels good. The water's just cold. The meditation is great. And I love that you say even just a minute a day, because I would often do 20 minutes a day, but sometimes it's like, that's just too much time that I have for today. So
Mhm.
sometimes I can't say I cheat, but I'll do a walking meditation while I'm walking. So I'm kind of doing two birds at once, and I'll listen to a guided walking meditation. It's like, all right, I've got some meditation done. I can always do another sitting quiet meditation later in the day, but it's done. I've always been a reader. My first job when I was 16 was working in a library all through college and grad school. I worked in libraries, and that's libraries is what I did when I would volunteer when the kids were in school. So I've always
Yeah.
been a reader, so that's an easy. So, and I flip flop, I'll alternate. I'll read two or three murder mystery junkie books or whatever, and then two or three not self-help books, but self-help books, so
Hmm.
something more for the brain, something just that's kind of fun and silly to read. So I've always done the reading, but I like that it is making, I can't say making me, but wanting me to make sure I do it every day, because I wasn't doing it every day with the reading. Now it's like, yep, I
Yeah.
just need to give myself a few minutes permission to just sit, have some quiet time, read something for fun, or read something to learn something. So I do that. But yeah, I love that the program is kind of just helping you be your better self. It's not, it's more than just a weight loss program. It just makes me maybe less of a dawdler or a procrastinator. I kind of get a lot more stuff done because
Yeah.
I don't make excuses anymore. It's like, all right, I want to get this done. Let's just do it, or break it down and get it done over the next couple of days. Or, I can't say I've got a full blown massive action plan laid out, but I've got a massive to-do list laid out a little better for the year and start
Yeah.
chipping away at those things. So it's definitely made me be I don't know, I did it fine when I was working because I never had time. And now that I have some time, I got in the habit of putting stuff off, and I'm not in that habit so much anymore. So it's nice. It kind of got me back on track with just getting a lot of stuff done.
Yeah. You seem like a completely different person from when you first joined. Um, and like
I was
just
exhausted when I joined,
physically,
to be
mentally,
honest.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exhausted because of like how
Just
you were doing things or just
emotionally exhausted because of what I went through, and
yeah.
physically exhausted because I really was pushing myself thinking it's going to help me lose some weight, and I wasn't. So I
Mm.
was walking 8 miles a day or something. I was still swimming. I was doing the classes. So just physically, I was like moving, moving, moving. I sleep fairly well. That's never been a problem, but just exhausted. And so now I'm still moving, but with the weight training, I'm moving a lot less, but just more effectively, I guess.
Yeah.
Um, and because it's forcing me to do stretching regularly, and I did have Nicole add some extra basic daily stretches, I am so much more flexible now than I was when I started the program, which is nice. I've got a lot of that
That's
flexibility back
important.
that I haven't had in a long time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, awesome.
it's
Well,
just prepared me to age better for sure. Yeah.
oh, I'm excited for that. You're going to be the person everyone's going to be like, how are you so fit? How are you able to eat so much food and maintain your body? And
That's been my secret plan all along. It's
yeah,
just sort of
to
be the
be,
person I've been trying to preach about and finally look like that person so that I'm like, well, it's pretty straightforward. You do have to make some concessions and not eat maybe the way or drink the way you were before, but this is the payoff or the trade-off is, you know, you feel great, you look a lot better, and you can
yeah.
do pretty much anything you want to do.
Well, you're leading by example, and you've debunked a lot of myth that people have, right? They think that once they pass like 50 and 60, weight loss becomes nearly impossible. And
Absolutely.
you've managed to lose weight, and managed to do it really successfully, right? You improve your body composition. From what you've shared today, like a lot of other areas have improved as well, just
Yeah.
through making a few tweaks.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, if you look at my pictures, I had never looked at a side profile of me and had no idea how big my belly was. And
Mm,
there's still some there, but it's so different than it was before. I mean, I really love the change in composition that's come about, you know,
yeah.
what's happened over the last couple months.
Yeah. Well, there's more coming.
I'm gonna believe
Uh,
you.
Good. Yeah, we know what we're
No,
doing.
it's
You
exciting.
saw it at this point. Yeah.
It's definitely no, I know it's just around the corner and it's very exciting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I like to end on this. I always like to ask members to share words of wisdom to either people that are current members of the tribe, past members of the tribe, future members of the tribe, or people that are just even considering eating plant-based. So if there's someone that is on the fence from committing to changing their life, either with training and nutrition, what is words of wisdom that you'd share with them now that you're again, we're not at the after photo yet, but you have a pretty darn
Right.
good after photo right now.
Just getting there. It's kind of the things that we talked about already. It's really you need to make some changes if you want to change. Um, if everything you've tried isn't working, then you need to try something new. For me, it was getting a coach. Finding you was just like a miracle, and your team is phenomenal as far as helping teach me how to do some things I didn't know how to do because I'm also known as being a know-it-all. I mean, my friends will come to me like, "What do I need to do for this? What should I be taking for that?" Um, but I didn't know it all. I've learned a lot of stuff. Every time there's a group call, I learn something I didn't know before. So it's a great educational tool. Um, and I, like you said, I'm a perfect example of someone who was active, but probably not physically fit. I was
Mm,
healthy, but I was overweight. And I made the changes. I made the commitment to myself, and I'm losing the weight, and I'm feeling much fitter, and I'm looking much fitter than I have in years. So it's worth investing in yourself if you want to make some changes. Kind of what I
yeah.
would say.
Well, beautiful. Well, I'm really proud of you, Anne. I'm excited for
Thanks.
the continuous transformation that you're going to have. And I just want to say a massive thank you for taking the time to jump on the podcast. And it's a little bit later in the evening for you as well. So just a
Oh no,
massive
that's
thank you
fine.
for jumping on the
And
show. And hopefully, you'll hear from some of the members, their feedback on the group call.
I'm sure I'll hear something. No, and I want to thank you for the work that you do. It's just remarkable. I mean, the whole drop of water and the ripple effect, and it's working. You're reaching more and more people as you do this, and as more people join and learn about it, it's having a huge impact. So thank you for the work that you're doing and your team that you built and all of that. So I'm just so blessed that I found it and you've helped me. So thank you for that.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
Yeah.